create a world where you feel surrounded by people that perhaps don't see their horses or let them have a voice? Is it possible to manifest an energy that would open more people's eyes to this magic world? Should we let Warwick start on that one?
I'm actually very, very lucky because, like when I do a clinic, I've been very open about my journey, both on social media and on, in my YouTube videos. You can see I've left them all up from the beginning, so you can see the way I used to view the world and the way I view the world now. And now I also have a podcast that, has been quite successful. Last year it was in the top 1% of worldwide podcasts. And what was the question? Where was I going with that? Sorry, there you go. So I'm very lucky because people that come to see a clinic of mine, either be in it or spectate it, they're picking up what I'm putting down before they get there. And it's a very, very fortunate place to be because that I only get positive energy. You don't get that negative soul-sucking energy, and trying to interact with people who want to argue with you or, reject what you're saying. It can be kind of soul-sucking work. But I do have a lot of people come up to me at the horsemanship showcase last week, and they said, at my yard, what do I do? Like, there's this lady and she's doing it all wrong, and how do I help her and tell her? I said, you don't. You lead by example. You do what you believe in and do it so well that pretty soon they're going, how did you get your horse to do that? And once they ask you the question, vomit it all over them. But before they ask the question, you almost get one chance to make a good first impression sort of thing. And if they're not open to hearing what you have to say and you try to tell them they're doing it wrong, they'll never listen to a thing you say again. So if you can, like I said, lead by example, do what you do, and if you do it well enough, they will be interested, and then they'll start asking for advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to start from the place that anyone that has horses does actually have horses because they love them. I don't think it's something that you do if you don't love them because it's too hard, it's too expensive, it's all of those other things. And I think that a lot of the time when people are doing things not so well, it's a lack of education rather than intentionally. Well, it's not intentionally, that's not the right word, but I am a very big believer that we just have to try and educate. And as Warwick said, lead by example. And I think it comes back to communication. And, one thing that actually frustrates me so much at the minute is the negativity that we face on social media every day. And I appreciate that. I really appreciate that we have to do better. I completely agree with that. And I think, but we all learn as we go, like we've talked about, and we all do things not very well and we learn and we do them better. But I do not see how being negative helps anybody. It doesn't help the person that you're being negative towards. I don't think it makes you feel any better, actually. It certainly wouldn't make me feel any better. So I think we really just have to try and be positive and try and strive to make people want to be better by doing it as well as we can.
There's a quote from the Bible that I've dragged around with me this year when this sort of topics come up. And I am a religious person. And it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. And if you're someone who thinks that you know a better way to treat animals or to train a horse to do a certain movement, whether that be dressage, jumping, liberty, then the way to share that with others isn't to mock them, to distance yourself from them, to create negativity towards those who are less, who have less, not are less. That was misworded. That have less than you do, or that you perceive them to have that you do. And the only way that we can grow and get better is to share with one another. And I think a huge part of that comes with how we actually truly interact with our horses. Again, don't worry, I won't go too far this evening, but another one is, how come you can see the speck in your brother's eye, but not the log in your own? So if we actually analysed our own lives and horsemanship the same way we analyse those of those we judge or those we see online, would we be as kind to ourselves as we think we would be? And I think trying to bring that lens to the world when we're looking at one another, with horses and without horses, forget all of it, whether it be, parenting, your dog, your horse, the way you do your laundry, the way you keep your house. They're all things that we get defensive about because we're doing our blooming best. And it's to remember that everybody else is as well. And so if you think that someone could use that knowledge and you could actually help them, when you offer them that knowledge, offer it in a way that is compassionate and helpful. Not like you're saying, okay, sorry, that's wrong, because that's the best way to get someone's back up. Yeah,
and a really good example of that is obviously stewarding has become a much bigger thing within our sport recently. And I've spent a lot of time talking to some of our stewards, Dan Chapman, who was actually the chief steward in Paris, who is our top national steward as well. And I really want to try and get together a working group of stewards, riders, judges, coaches to sort of try and develop a little bit more transparency within that system. But talking to him and talking to some of the other stewards, they were actually taught that if they sit in the corner of the arena, and initially they were taught that if they saw something that they didn't like, first of all they were to stand up. Then they were to stand up and make eye contact so you could tell that they were watching you. Then they were to cross their arms. And already you're like, what? Why? How is that going to help anybody?
Did they stamp their feet next? Is that what it is?
Pretty much, there's people really trying to change this, Dan being one of them. But, this is from a couple of years ago. But, that's just such a negative way of dealing with the problem, because immediately you're making a rider feel uncomfortable, threatened, in a really bad way. Whereas I feel like we have to, those stewards have to be, they have a really important job, but they have to be approachable and they have to be good communicators. And we as riders have to also be better to communicate. And that if a steward says something to us, we're like, okay, yeah, take it on board, try and fix it. But, the minute somebody's standing up with their arms crossed, what does it make you be? Defensive, frustrated, all the wrong things that you're already in a high stress situation. Riders are nervous, anxious, all of those things at a competition. You want to try and make them feel more at home to enable them to help their horses better. The more you get them with their back up, the worse they're going to ride.
I think linking back to what we said in the first half, of where we all of us agreed on stage and in the audience that horses and people have to be allowed to make mistakes to grow. And so when people make mistakes with how they ride, maybe you're in the warm-up, you're slightly overbent, all you need is someone to be like, mate, have you a steward to say point someone back into the correct direction and then move on. There's no need. I think that's another thing, a great thing from those, when I had the lessons with Frederick, was he said to me, horses don't hold grudges. So if you end up in a situation where you have to make a correction, make it and then get amnesia about it. Yeah. It never happened. And I think we need to bring that mindset to one another.
Yeah, but I think it's also, again, it's education, and it's that understanding that a horse that's working a little bit too round is not in roll cur, and it's the difference between coming back to the young stallion that I rode the other day. If I don't get on him and put him a little bit round at a show, it'd be like, bye Becky, wee, splat, and the horse would be off around the warm up, like looking for his lady friends. Actually, any friend, he doesn't mind. So, it's being able to have that conversation and say, guys, I know this horse is a little bit too round. He's not too short and tight. He's just a little bit more over his back. Yes, he might be a little bit behind the vertical. That is not the worst thing in the world. I would not expect to get a good mark from the judge for this because it's not where it needs to be ultimately. And I wouldn't try and take it into the test like that. But it's somewhere that I need to go to help that horse, to get him in a place where his brain goes, okay, focus, concentrate. Then we can put that poll up and that nose out. So, it's that, and again, it's knowledge. It's knowledge and understanding that develops that better.
Are you saying you would go to the steward first and say, hey, this horse starts out a bit like this, let me get through that and we'll be okay?
I probably wouldn't go there in the first place,
Okay.
but if I felt like they were concerned,
Okay.
then I would be like, I know what you're going to say.
Yep.
I'm doing this because I am going to make it better. And I really want to try and create an environment where that is something that you can do. And, yes, a horse that is too round and tight. But also, I mean, how many people, I don't know, but I've certainly got on a horse at a show that has been anxious and a little bit worried. And it goes, okay, this is my happy place when I'm feeling like this. Tucks its chin on its chest, and it's nothing to do with me, and I might be trying my heart out to get that horse in the frame that I want, but until I can get a connection and get it to take the contact forward, it's not in that perfect place. And again, you have to be able to have that conversation, because that's not you putting that horse there. That horse is going for its happy place, which is just not where we need it at that point in time. So, I think we have to have really open conversations about how we can make this better.
Yeah, you can't look at someone from the outside and know where that horse and human are on their journey. Like, do you know what I mean? It's you're seeing a snapshot. Even if you watch that person compete all day, you might see them ride for an hour and a half throughout the day. That's nothing. That's nothing in a horse's life. And I completely agree with you. I think we've had a conversation before this as well, and I said to you, I think something that would be spectacular from more competitive riders is doing a little bit more kind of what we do online, of putting those videos out and saying, look, this is the why, this is what you're seeing, this is the why, this is where it goes, now you know more, don't freak out. Because I think that is a big thing.
But that is so difficult to do. This is my point, that my social media is frivolous and fun and trying to be exceedingly positive. But I also don't put a picture on where my horse is behind the vertical, because I literally get pulled to bits if I do. And
I agree with you. Social media is so many things we post or like think about posting, and then you'll see like a touch of an ear or this or a horse looking the wrong, like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't look perfect. And I think it's such a weird thing, because we talk about horses having freedom and emotions and stuff, but then demand that they be nothing but impeccably smiley and happy constantly for it to be acceptable.
Yeah, that is such a valid point.
Like, if I look out at you guys here this evening,
some of you look really miserable.
Well, this is what I'm going to say. You're concentrating. You chose to be here. You drove here. You bought the ticket. You're here. But then if I took pictures of you without you noticing, sat in the audience, then everybody who looked unhappy while we were like, I'm not saying. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying we can.
I think
Becky
read
emotions.
and Ben is saying that some of you have resting bitch face.
But just that, then say none of you can have anything to do with, any of what we do or anything like that ever again, because you were unhappy when we got that picture.
But it is, the resting bitch face, you laugh. But, Bomb, if we go to him as an example, I always say he is the epitome of a happy athlete. He goes in that arena and he smiles, yeah. But I have other horses that are... I'm trying to get them in the same mental headspace, but because they are concentrating and they are thinking about what they're doing, they have a teeny bit of a resting bitch face when they're concentrating. So immediately they don't look like the same picture of the happy athlete, but actually they're still really with me, really focused, in a really good place. They just have a different face.
Driving from the airport this afternoon, so when you picked me up from the airport, we drove along, and I saw some horses standing in the field under a tree, and one of them, when we drove by, it's funny, I looked at him and I thought, if that horse is... So he's under a tree with his friends, with a foot cocked. And I looked at him, I thought, if that horse's head and face were on a picture on social media, someone would be saying how bad a rider the rider was. And this horse was standing under a tree in a field with his friends. And he just kind of happened to have that, picture doesn't mean
a picture is not an okay thing to judge.
Obviously, we need to move on, have another question, but just to put one more thing on this, which is a bit humorous to finish it. We're all out for a hack together, okay?
That would be dangerous.
We're not. It would be blooming good fun with hip fast full of Jaeger bombs. We're all riding on the buckle end, or we're not even holding the reins. And the horses are going on, maybe ears a bit back, ears a bit sideways. And then suddenly, all of our horses in an instant prick their ears. Do we go, oh, what a moment of absolute unified, glorious happiness?
Or do we go, oh shit?
Or do we pop the feet back in the stirrups? Start to slowly gather things up. You look at the person riding next to you and you're like, yeah, and they're like, yeah, okay. And we're about to ride our 8 seconds in the rodeo ring, because we know...
Becky has reached for her neck strap.
Yeah. And
My holy crap strap.
This is what I would say, because I say that and you all know it. You all know it. Equally, if we pull a horse out the stable, I think actually one of the biggest issues we have in this is, how do we make horses look really nice in photographs if we're having a professional photograph done? We try and spook the crap out of them with plastic bags and throwing sand and bottles full of rocks, so the horse is going, danger alert, what's over there? So there's so much more to, I guess, just to finish that, there's so much more to a horse than its ears. Watch their cheeks, watch their nostrils, watch how they breathe, watch their eyes, watch their eyelids. There are so many aspects of a horse's body that will show you how it's feeling. The ears are not the end.